Well, episode 12. First of all, big welcome to all our members and a big thank you for subscribing. In this episode, we have got Oli Davies. Now, the 16th of June is a very special date in the anglers' calendar. Been lost a little bit over the years for some people, but Oli is a true traditionalist and he likes to get out on the 16th of June every year. So this year we thought we'd join him on a little river adventure. We're also on the banks of Stoneacres, an epic fishery, catching up with our good friend Terry Dempsey to find out how he's been getting on his campaign up there so far this year. In the early episodes of Carp Angle, we talked about mental health awareness. We've actually joined up with someone this month for a chat about these kinds of topics. And we picked his brains on a few little bits and pieces to basically, hopefully, pass on a few hints and tips to help people have a better life and be a little bit happier in general. So hopefully everyone can pick up a little something from that. As well as that, Joe Blogg's Fishing in the Moment is back, and you can also expect the usual mixture of stories from a variety of anglers covering a variety of topics. Sit back and enjoy episode 12. Well, not your typical backdrop of where we'd start a carp angle feature. However, it is the 15th of June, and that can only mean one thing.
River season, it's coming.
Now, this is not something I've actually done myself in the past, certainly not on the rivers anyway. I have fished lakes back in the day when I was a nipper. There used to be a closed season on the lakes too, didn't there, mate? I don't know, what year was that I stopped? Sort of, was it 95 or something like that?
Yeah, it's a long time ago. I think a lot of younger anglers won't remember that there was a closed season once upon a time. It was any method trout fishing, wasn't it, back then?
That's it.
That's how they got away with it, put a few trout in and yeah, they could get away with letting you fish. But before then, there was no fishing at all, was there?
No, and I remember the little syndicate I used to fish, the Garrison. It's crazy, wasn't it, in the closed season? You go over there, and it's the same at every lake, but you could almost hand feed them. They'd get so tame, yet 12 o'clock strikes, a few rods go out.
They know, didn't they? They know. It'd be interesting to see, wouldn't it, today? But I mean, we saw some yesterday, didn't we, in the river? You know, we couldn't resist going and having a little look. And it'd be interesting to see if they're so visible tomorrow.
Yeah, so this is something that you do pretty much every year, is it, Ol?
I have done, yeah, for as long as I can remember. Well, for as long as I've been fishing, you know, it was always quite a magical moment, that June the 16th. I think you see quite a lot of older carp anglers sort of bemoaning the magic's gone, you know, and we used to love the 16th of June and the start of the season, and I think to myself, well, why don't you still love it? It's still there. If you fish the rivers or anywhere with a closed season, that magic is still there. I still feel it now. I'm excited.
Definitely. I'll tell you, to be honest with you, around our way, the rivers are seriously lacking in carp, and I kind of almost, you know, thought, oh, it must be like that around a lot of the country, but the more I kind of inquire about river carp fishing, the more it appears that there's a lot dotted about.
There's carp everywhere. Every river's got carp in, Joe. From like the trout rivers like the Itchin. I mean, we fish in the winter, we grayling fish this real exclusive trout fishing beat. And yeah, there's carp in there. There's a handful of carp.
And there's something truly magical, isn't there, about watching carp in the flow, in the crystal clear water. I mean, that one we saw yesterday when we were having a little wrecking.
Oh, he was loving it, wasn't he? In about, what, 6 inches of water, 8 inches of water?
Just sucking off the weed,
yeah,
you know, milling about.
In quite fast water where you'd expect, well, there were chub, weren't there, and you'd expect to see barbel there, but there was the carp quite happy in amongst it. So, yeah, they're quite well adapted for living in the rivers. They're hardy, they can deal with, you know, even like semi-tidal and tidal conditions. They can deal with a bit of salt. They can deal with the fast water and the floods. So yeah, wherever you look, if you look hard enough, you find them. But people do keep it quiet because, you know, everybody's looking, aren't they? Everybody's looking, and if you find something, you've got to keep it under your hat, or try to, because loose lips sink ships, don't they?
Of course, yeah. And on that note, you know, you've got a couple of spots that you want to take us to, but there won't be any big wide drone shots or anything like that.
Nah, I mean, not just for myself, but for respect for the other local anglers as well. I'm quite lucky where I live. I've got access to a couple of really good small rivers with not huge populations of carp in, and not giant carp, but, you know, enough to make it worthwhile fishing for them. So normally I'd be fishing for the barbel at the start of the season, but, you know, the barbel and carp are often hand in hand in these little rivers, so you never know what you're going to catch. But you haven't caught a barbel yet, have you?
No, and I've only ever caught one river carp, about 14 pounds. So.
I don't know if we're going to beat it size-wise. We might catch some nice ones. I mean, I've been fishing.
That's good enough for me, mate.
Yeah, I've been fishing this little bit of river for, well, since I was sort of 13 or 14, and fishing one particular bit since I was 16. So that's 20. Oh, should I really say? It's 28 years ago, and they're the same fish, and they're not big. They haven't grown. I kind of call them pygmy dinosaurs.
Awesome.
They're like awesome, tiny little, well not tiny, but doubles and scaly and beautiful black commons. Lovely carp.
Well, I'm super excited, mate. So, what's the plan?
Well, it's getting on a bit now. We've just had a little something to eat. Put the chicken to bed. Well, I'll put her in her coop in a minute. Put the cats away, and then we'll get up there. And this is another thing about river fishing. At the start of the season, everyone's excited. If it's a busy spot or somewhere that people know about, sometimes you've got to get out there quite early. My mate's fishing on the River Lee at the moment, and he's been camped up there for 2 days. He was going to come round for a mix the other night, and he binned it off to camp up the river.
Really?
So hopefully he's got on the fit. It is, yeah. People have always done that, haven't they, in popular areas? So where we're going tonight is not totally unknown. There might be other people about. Hopefully we'll get somewhere in. If not, plan B, I don't know. There ain't a massive plan B. We have got some other places to go. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, Joe, but
sometimes it's not.
I kind of like to think on my feet. I like to make up at what's going on at the time.
When I go travelling, I always say I'd never make plans. Don't make plans, or you can't be guided by the universe.
That is a very, very good way. And I know, of all people, you can roll with that. Someone like Alan or some of the other lads who really need a strict plan to go to, they can't deal with that. But we're going fishing. We're going to find some carp to catch.
Sweet.
And we might be up all night, Joe. Are you up for that? I hope you and Mike got a good bit of sleep.
Yeah. We'll have a couple of coffees or
I had
something.
a little lie in this morning, so I'm all right. But
sweet, right.
Anyway,
well,
welcome. Thanks for coming. Let's get the gear ready and get loaded. I'm excited now. It's getting a bit dark. I'd like to get there maybe just on dusk. We won't drop the rods out till midnight, but let's go and see what we can see. Yeah. Okay,
Awesome.
Let's go get them.
Cool.
Oh, it's the most beautiful summer's evening. Beautiful. Ideal. And we're here, and best of all, there's no one fishing in the swim that I really wanted to fish. There is someone else a little bit further downstream, but otherwise the stretch is empty. It's just coming up 10 o'clock now, so we've got a couple of hours to kill. It's nice to see it in the light, but I've fished here a few times in the past, so it's fairly easy fishing, right under the rod tips pretty much. And we shall sit and wait impatiently now, sort a couple of rigs out, put a little bit of bait in, get it ready, and eagerly await the midnight drop-in. Bit of a luxury with a nice chair, but this is what I'm going to be sleeping on tonight. Kick the legs back and tip it back, get neck ache. But if I get any sleep at all, I just love this time of year. It'll be light at 3:30, and the dawn chorus here is amazing. We're sort of out in the country a little bit, so it's a lovely place. Just kick back and enjoy the vibe now. Rods are ready pretty much. Yeah, see what Joe's up to, eh?
Well, the wait is over. Patiently sat here since 10 o'clock, trickled a little bit of bait in, prepping the old swim up, and it's been a nice little buzz, hasn't it, mate?
It is, yeah. I like getting here a little bit early and waiting, and I do wait. I don't cast out before midnight.
To be honest with you, it was lucky we did get here the time we did, really, wasn't it?
There's been a few people about, isn't there? So, a lot of people feeling that same June the 16th buzz. It's good, it's good.
And it's probably, everyone's probably a little bit, sort of shy to say anything, isn't they? So just sort of, is there someone there holding back? And like you said, you might even know some of them. It's quite amusing.
I might do, yeah.
People creep around in the dark trying to be stealthy.
It's good, isn't it? It's good.
Anyway, like you say, the clock has just chimed.
Yeah, the village clock's just chimed 12, so we can get the rods out officially. officially.
Awesome. Right, what's your go-to tactics for on here then, mate?
Well, mate, I'm really just fishing how I fish everywhere. I'm fishing a little multi-rig with a trimmed down scope X squid pop-up and a little bit of flake and pellet balled in over the top, and that's about it. You know, I've got quite a nice swim here with a little bit of far bank cover and some lily pads to my left down, and it's kind of forcing the river to a central channel. Quite slow flowing here, but it means that that's a little bit deeper and always clear of that channel.
And like you say, it kind of almost pushes them into that channel if they're coming from here to there.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you've got a little plot about 100 yards further up and it's a lot wider there, isn't it? But between you and I, there's quite a lot of big snags on the near bank, so you know, there's bound to be a few fish held up.
Good holding areas, plus passing through zones.
Yeah, I think they'll get up and down, especially with a few other people on the river. You know, they'll be pushing them about. They won't be able to sit and not be fished for, I think. There's a few lines in the water, isn't there? So, yeah.
Sweet.
Fingers crossed a couple will come our way. There's a big chub in here as well, Joe.
Is there?
Yeah.
I think probably the biggest chub I've ever had is only about 3.5 pounds.
Oh, they're double that size, isn't it?
Really?
Yeah, if you get one, it'll be a big one. Yeah.
Well, that'd be cool to see.
Yeah. Well, we're river fishing, aren't we? So you never know what you're going to get. I don't think there's any barbel in this bit, but you never know.
Cool.
You never know.
All right, mate, well, I'm double excited. Hook baits are on, the rod's ready to go. Should we get them out?
Let's get them out, mate.
Let's do it.
Good luck, Joe.
You too, bro. Right, so ready to flick these out, but before I do, I thought I'd quickly just show you the baits that I put out. This morning, I coated a load of cell in Smart Liquid and then a load of ground bait as well. Obviously, there's a bit of flow in the water here, so I'm imagining that as that flow is just hitting the baits, it's just going to be sending that scent signal off downstream and hopefully grabbing their attention and pulling them up to me. I didn't go too mad. I put about 100 baits out, sort of in the middle line, and then sprayed a few really stinky pellets, which I've had soaking in some liquids as well. Again, not too many, just a few pouchfuls. From what I can gather, there is quite a few in here, but I think it's better off just going lightly to start with and then top it up as and when we get a bite, if we do get a bite. Oli seems pretty confident, so yeah, hopefully the fish are going to play ball. 2 pop-ups ready to go on the spot. Let's do this. I've stripped everything down to as little as possible for this trip. 2 6-foot sawn-offs, and then I use my bases on the sawn-off just because it gives me a lot more cranking power. I've got a lead core leader on here just because, you know, it looks like there's the odd snags about, so it's better to have that protection down towards the end of the line. And then good old spinner rig, 20 pound IQ, little yellow IB on the end there. I've got an IB on one and a diamond white on the other, 2 of my favourites. Let's see if they do the business. A pretty shallow down there, probably only about 3 foot, I reckon. But I've put it in the middle into the flow. Like I say, hopefully then the flow will get the bait working for me. I'm sure if the fish are about, they're going to be giving us some liners. Right, that's it. 2 rods are out. It's a lovely evening. There's quite a few stars out. Bit of cloud up there getting hit from the light pollution from London, and yeah, plenty of bats scooting around too. Surprised we haven't heard any owls or deers barking. It feels like any time now that's going to kick in. But yeah, it's a real lovely evening. June the 16th. Come on a carp.
Same rig as I'll always use. Just a little trim down pop up, and I'm just hooking a small bag. I'm only swinging it underarm about 10 yards. I wouldn't normally cast with a PVA bag and a multi-rig, but in this situation it'd be fine. I've still got Willow fluff on the... So yeah, just a question of flicking it out. That's about 3 foot deep there. I've got a reasonable drop. I'm going to put one rod there, one rod a touch further up. Set the clutch loose because they do go like stink in here. Yeah, my other rod is going Good drop there. Wait for a bite. Hopefully it won't take too long. Oh, that's still the first one, is it? Yeah. Come on, Ollie. Oh, he's very strong. Oh, he's come off. Well, the clock had just struck 2 o'clock and I was wondering why I didn't have a bite. We were talking about a bite and all of a sudden it's rattled off and unfortunately I've lost it. Really annoyed, really annoyed. Yeah, just hook pulled. Felt like a really strong fish as well, taking line. Anyway, yeah, first bite took 2 hours. Hopefully there'll be another one. Just gonna have to get the bait back out there. Now I just switched it not that long ago, Mike, had I about half an hour earlier for a little citrus pop up. I've always done quite well on them down here. I think they just like that sweet hook bait. So yeah, I'm gonna stick to that and get it back out there. It's about 2:30 now, about 2:20 by the time I've had to sort out. It'll be getting light not long from now. So yeah, that'd be a good bite time as well. Haven't heard anything from Joe yet. Fingers crossed that he'll bag one as well. Anyway, let's get it back out. Little bit of light silkweed out there. It's not a fast flowing river, so the pop-up's perfect. Haven't had a bite of the citrus, I'm going to switch them both over to it. Oh, it's exciting, isn't it? The bites in here are proper rippers as well because the water's pretty shallow. They head off downstream at a rate of knots. It's actually not that far here, it's always deceptive after dark how far you've actually got to chuck. There's a proper scatty little one. Oh. Oh. That is the only trouble with short rods, when there's reeds in the margin. He's going absolutely mental. I can't really let him have too much line because of these pads. Yay, got him. What a result. God, look at it steaming. Oh, he's only a small one, but what a result. First carp of the season, June the 16th. Well, it's just starting to get light, the dawn's creeping in. Got this little common in the net. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave him in the net, unhook him, leave him here until it gets light. If there's more fish about, I don't want to put him back and spook him. There's a good chance of another bite. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that I lost one, so yeah, looks good for maybe another bite or two. Wicked stuff. just stepped out the back of the swim for a piss. How's that for timing? Oh, well done, mate. That's an absolute ripper, wasn't it? Oh, I hate when it gets caught over the peck like that. That's it. Come on, you little bug. Couple of carp in the net. Not a bad start to the new season, hey? Two completely different carp, and that's the beauty of the river. I mean, I know they're both commons, but you've got one long thin male with rough skin, all still spawny, massive paddle, and then we've got this little character, little short fat dumpy one. In fact, let me flip him round, he's actually two-tone on the other side. Check that one out for a little dumpy character. Lovely old fish, these ones. Not massive, but on the small rods, in this little bit of river, shallow bit of river, the bites are explosive. The fights are a little bit fraught in and out of the pads. Yeah, it's really great fun. Check him out. Proper little character. Quick change of hook. Easily done on a multi-rig. Rest of the hook link's undamaged. Those little pink citrus. Always done me well down here, that pink. I seem to like them. Oh, shit. Guaranteed bites those are. Yeah, rather than carry loads of different tubs of pop-ups, I just put a few different ones in the same tub. What did we do before bait screws, eh? Cool, that come out of the blue, didn't it? Proper wicked tuna. Oh, let's just gathered up my other line. Oh. In you go. Well, that bite was out of nowhere as well. I've been stood watching, you know, they do fizz and give themselves away here, and it was actually on the right hand rod. Hasn't done a bite, all the other three bites have come on the left, and this little rascal ripped off, proper ripped off, and he took out my other line, made it a little bit fraught, but landed him. Look, he's got a pucker little mouth, little barbules. I think he's actually blind in this eye, it's a bit milky. Just a characterful little fish, massive tail, proper little river common. There are some really nice mirrors in here as well. Be nice if one of those showed up, but quite happy catching them. Right, let's get back, get the rod back out. Total carnage. Oh, they fight so hard. Hadn't even got the rod back out there. Just one out. Oh, I thought he fell off then. It just cut through a lily stalk. He's still on. It's another racing common, as Ditch would call them. They don't give up. Absolutely bionic. Right, we go under the net. That's it. Gotcha. Oh, that was mega. Literally only just slipped one back. And there's another one on the end. It's just started to kick off really. That's 3 bites in quite quick succession. So that means I need to get a rod back out. Could be chance of another one, and it'd be really nice to get one of the nice mirrors. Let's have a quick look. Another mad little wildie. Mental battles. Great fun. Little old fish, curled over fins. Splitting his tail, splitting his dorsal, you know, they're full of character, these fish. They might be small, but they're not young. Lovely. That was absolutely crazy. I picked it up to recast it. Didn't actually lift it up. Just paused for a second because I saw the line switch, and yeah, it was on the end. If I'd picked it up 5 seconds earlier. Oh, he's stuck in the pads now. I've been quite lucky. None of them have got stuck. Here he goes, he's coming. Oh, I've lost it. Had a good little run there. Felt like a slightly better one as well, typically. A few bites now. Crazy, isn't it? It's really picked up after a little bit of a slow start. One lead left. Absolutely out of nowhere, wasn't it? Must have turned my remote off. Oh, I really thought he'd got in those trees as well. Oh, this is a bit of a better one, I think. Oh yeah. I'm really hoping my little lead's still on. What a steaming bite. That's the thing about these river carp. For me, the bite is the best bit, and you know what, it's a good thing I stood by the rod there. I thought he'd got into those far bank snags, but yeah, I'm pretty sure this is kind of stamp of fish of the other two that I lost. They're just that little bit bigger and they fight so hard. But yeah, wicked. Well, that one's the best one of the night. Stroke morning. Definitely lost a couple of better ones as well. Absolutely steaming bite. Mega fight. They're supercharged, these river fish. Such good fun. But yeah, sun's coming up now. That's 7 bites, I think, in since about 2:30 this morning. I'm ready for a coffee soon. What are you saying? Give it another half hour or so.
I think so, mate.
Yeah, we'll see how Joe's done. I think he's had a couple of bites as well. Don't know if he's landed any, but it's been proper hectic here the last couple of hours. Mega carp. Love these old river carp. Look at the tail on him, man. Such a character. He's not waiting. See you later. absolutely nowhere again. Tightly flat rodded me, but luckily managed to keep it out of that snag on the far margin. It doesn't even look like a carp, it's like catfish. Yeah, it's a common. It's not even a big one, it's just a crazy, crazy, mad common. Well, that is bite number 8 of the morning. It's been a pretty crazy morning, hasn't it, Mike? The bites are like, you know, the bite for me is the buzz anyway, but they're so violent. Oh, mate. I can't believe I landed that one, to be honest. You know, even fishing quite strong gear, they're so powerful.
Well, it was a lovely night by the river. I sat there willing the rods to go until about 3 o'clock, and then I started to get a little chill on and a little bit damp, so I lay down on my mat and just literally just started to drift into a sleep and had a bite. As soon as I picked the rod up, it shot round to the right so quickly, it was unbelievable. When it got round the back of a snag and done me. About an hour later, exactly the same thing happened. Yeah, I was a bit distraught, to be honest with you, but that is fishing. This morning it was very quiet, there wasn't much happening at all. Oli was obviously smashing them up down here, and he'd actually run out of lead, so he was kind enough to say, Joe, look, it's still happening down here, the swim's still rocking, come and flick them out in here, there's definitely a chance. And he was right, there was a chance, but Noddy here managed to lose it. So it hasn't been my day. I saw a single magpie as we were leaving Ollie's yesterday, and it seems to have cursed me. I'll blame it on that anyway, not just me being a bad angler. Right, as I said, it's an absolutely stunning morning, but the sun has got up now and the heat is getting up, something chronic. Ollie's chicken needs letting out. He's got one more fish to show us, so we'll have a quick look at that and then go and let Lucky out. Well, we thought it was all over, but it wasn't. Just as we were about to...
I don't know, that was crazy, wasn't it? I'd literally just lifted this one out of the water. We were going to have a quick look at it and go, and you dived past me to catch a rod which was flying off. That was, what did you say? Thank you, universe.
Yeah, always got to thank the universe, mate. But look at him, he's a cool character, isn't he?
Really nice one, man, really nice one.
Blind in one eye, he's got a black mark on his dorsal and that little mishmash of scales, and
yeah,
looks like you got a female there by the looks of it.
Yeah, I've had all males all day and finally a female. They've obviously spawned fairly recently, I think. He's got all his tubercles on him. But yeah, it's they're crazy old fish, aren't they? And the bites are just something else.
Super, super cool carp, mate. Well, thank you very much for bringing us down here.
Yeah, you're welcome, Joe. You're welcome. I love this place, you know, and days like today, oh why?
Awesome. Right, we're going to get that chicken sorted out and then got another little stretch to check out, haven't we?
Yeah, mate, let's have a little pit stop and back to it. So we've had a little regroup, a couple of cups of coffee, and we're ready for part 2 of the adventure. We're not far away from where we were this morning on a day ticket section of river. It's a beautiful little bit. There's a few carp in here and also a few barbel. It's a little bit murky, but I think what we're going to do is we're going to start at the bottom of the stretch, spend about half an hour in each spot, you know, ones that look a little bit likely, and see if there's anything about. The weather is glorious. It's going to be 29 today. It's not ideal conditions for fishing now. But you never know, if we can find a carp and put a bait in front of it, there's always a chance of catching them. These river carp, they've got to swim, they can't just sit there in torpor, you know, they've got to eat all the time. So Joe's just on one half of this little bend. I'm going to go downstream, creep down and chuck it under the trees where it's a bit shady and secluded, and we'll see if there's anything at home. Fingers crossed.
Well, I know this might sound a bit soppy, but all three of us are absolutely cream crackered, which must be surprising considering we're all whippersnappers. Anyway, the show must go on, and we're having another go on another river. Ollie's jumped in next door, and I've jumped in just to the right. Got multiple features in this swim, to be honest with you. There's a slacker bit at the back, big reed bed to the right there, overhang to the left, sort of a bit more faster flowing down, sort of closer in, so there's a bit of flow pushing through. So I put one in the calm water, and as soon as I cast it there was a big eruption in the reeds out the back there, so definitely carp about. And then the other one's just down to the left here, just kind of under the overhang really. Oh, go on in. And then I've just put sort of, I don't know, about 10 boilies and a little handful of pellet around each of them, just try and get a bit of scent in the water and hopefully get them on the feed. But yeah, I'm going to sit myself back a little bit, not too far because I've got no bank sticks in. So it could be a bit precarious if we get a fast, violent take in this swim, but all part of the fun. Let's have it. Well, far from the best conditions in the world.
No, we ended up staying a little bit late, didn't we, at our first destination.
That'd be my fault.
No, well, there was still a bite to be had, Joe, and I didn't want to leave without getting you one. You know, you'd come real close, didn't you? And
Yeah.
It was literally last gasp. Pulled it out of the bag.
Yeah.
Little
If I was a carp on a day like today, I'd be finding the most slack bit of water, maybe some reeds, bit of shade, wedging myself in there and doing very little. Do you reckon that's what they're up to?
I reckon so, mate. I mean, what is this, 29 degrees today, super, super hot, really. Like, these small rivers, your best weapon is dawn, dusk and darkness, like those periods of change and the period of darkness where the fish will come out and feel a little bit more confident. I think right about now they're going to be tucked right under the deepest undercuts and the deepest snags. Having said that, we did see one, didn't we? We came up for a little wander yesterday just to check it all out, and we did see one, so...
Yeah, and when I cast out I spooked one, so yeah, there's...
So they're about, but will they feed now? We paid 3 hours worth of parking, so we've kind of got 3 hours, which is maybe an hour in 3 different spots. If we don't get one, we don't get one, but...
Worth a go.
Worth a go, yeah.
Well, you've definitely kind of whet my appetite, if you like, for a bit of river fishing, fired up the buzz for it. So it's something that I want to do a little bit of this year. So whilst I'm out with you, I thought I'd pick your brains a little bit, you know. What are the kind of key things that you've learned from doing lots of river fishing over the years?
I mean, straight away it goes back to location, Joe. Like, find them, catch them. If we can find carp and we can put a bait close to them, we've got a really good chance of catching them. And that goes for your tiny rivers or your big rivers. But location is your critical thing. And you're not, in a small river, you're actually looking for the fish themselves. So not necessarily just holding areas, but we can afford to take a little bit of time and, you know, scan the water. And if we did see carp, didn't we, like when we came down before? Although today they're less obvious. There is a chance, you know, you'll walk into a swim and there'll be one sat in front of you. So, yeah, location really important. Tackle really simple. You know, I don't change anything really to what I'm doing normally. We talked about sort of pop-ups, didn't we? Most people maybe wouldn't use pop-ups in a river, but yeah, I've done it for quite a long time now with great success. You know, maybe not in super fast flowing water, but yeah, anywhere where there's a bit of a slow flow or a slack, then yeah, for me the pop-up is the best rig.
Whilst we're on that subject then, I know that that's what you use for, what, 90% of your fishing nowadays?
Yeah, maybe not the barb, like specific barbel fishing, I might use a bottom bait then, but yeah, for 90% of my carp fishing, yeah, multi-rig.
Yeah, and I know recently you've been up at the Wallpack using the same methods that you use everywhere else and pretty much spanked it anyway.
Caught a few caught a few. Yeah, I've done okay. I've charged myself with catching a couple of decent ones, and yeah, I've succeeded in doing that. So
A lot of these type of waters, you know, people shy away from bright pop-ups just because, you know, they've had a lot of pressure. But
it's funny, my mate Curly, a photographer at Nash, he said to me the other day, like, you've sort of opened my eyes a little bit about fishing a bright pop-up over particle baits. You know, it's not really something that's done. If you're carpy, you whittle down a tiger nut and balance it, don't you? So it wafts around, and you know, Mr. Carp, he feeds around all around the area, wafting the bait around everywhere, never eats it because, you know, he just can't see it. Whereas if you've got something bright, something pink, something orange, they swim in there, feeding about. They might not eat it first time, they might do a couple of laps on it, but they'll eat it because it's there in front of them and they can't resist it. So I just think you get quicker bites. And like you said in your last carp angle, where you waded out and found the rest of your PVA bag, where it had picked up your pop-up first, I think that happens a lot. They come down, they start feeding on the bait, and the pop-up is one of the first things that they eat.
we talked about it as well, didn't we? You know, both seen it, sort of multiple different types of bottom bait rigs go in and out, sometimes, you know, half a dozen times before they hook them. Whereas with a pop-up, if it goes in the mouth, you know, you've got a decent pop-up rig, it's poised, isn't it, at the perfect position. Whichever way the fish approaches it from, it'll spin and do exactly what it needs to do.
If they actually eat it, if they suck it in, you're hooking them. You're hooking them. From my experience watching them, a little bit different with a bottom bait rig, and maybe it's something to do with them picking it up a little bit accidentally sometimes, you know, rather than so deliberately. I don't know.
I think it's more just to do with the positioning of the hook. You know, it can come in and out, can't it? You know, whereas because the pop-ups like that, wherever they mouth around it, that's just in the right position, isn't it, to prick them on the bottom lip.
Yeah. No, there is a time of year I think where they maybe shy away a little bit from the pop-up presentation, but
Definitely.
otherwise, yeah, it's really my go-to
And
these
even
days.
bright ones as well. I mean, sometimes you'll go to a duller one, won't you?
Yeah, I mean,
Fruit bait.
I'm down with matching the hatch, you know, and I started off actually our little trip last night. No, it didn't matter during the hours of darkness, but I ended up putting a sweet pink citrus one because I remembered that's what had done me really well, you know, last couple of times that I've been up there, and lo and behold, started being quite busy on first light. Yeah.
I mean, obviously the nature of these kind of venues is they're pretty snaggy, aren't they? So gear has to be pretty strong, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I love a short rod. We've used a Sawnos on this trip. I might actually prefer to use a 9-footer, and that's more because of like a lot of the marginal stuff under your feet when you're playing them, and they sort of dive underneath you. Sometimes it's beneficial to have just that in between length. 12 foot is far too long for these little rivers, far too long. I mean, look how tight they are. But yeah, 6 foot is sometimes too short because of the stuff that's in front of you. So yeah, any strong rod, I mean, you can fish with a 12 footer, no problem, but you know, you just might find it a little bit awkward and restrictive in some tight spots. Strong line, 15-pound line minimum, decent size hooks, you know, 5, 4. You know, if you're fishing with a big bit of luncheon meat on the hook, you know, you might have a 2 in there, buried in there. Yeah. Big bit of steel. Yeah, it just depends what you're fishing. You know, we've sort of talked about traditional carp tactics mainly, but actually rivers like this, a big cube of luncheon meat free-lined, or throwing some bread in and watching it float down. You know, the far more simpler methods of catching carp are also really effective. I mean, we haven't done it today. It's a bit hot to be stood out rolling meat under. I'm too lazy for that. But
all right. Well, you talked about key times with regards to dawn and dusk and that, but what about actual weather? Is there any particular weather that rivers fish better in? I mean, I suppose the rain must affect them quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're fishing for carp, because you know this is carp angle, so let's concentrate on them. Carp don't really like flood conditions. You know, it tends to move them into slacker areas. So a good floodwater carp swim is not the same as a good low water carp swim. You know, you're looking for, on larger rivers, your lock gates and your insides of bends and your slacks behind big snags. And actually, probably the same in smaller rivers. Where you're fishing now, Joe, you know, you're fishing a little slack bit, aren't you, on the back of a reed bed. And Mr. Carp, you know, doesn't want to spend his day swimming against the current. You know, he's quite happy to mooch around there. So, yeah, I mean, if you can't find them, you're looking for obvious features. And they'd be the same features that you're looking for anywhere else. So you're talking about snags, undercuts, reed beds, any holding features, any slacks. Ooh, little bleep there. Yeah, so, and most importantly, carp. You know, if you can see the carp, That's really the best indicator of where they are. Sometimes they're in a really unusual spot where you wouldn't necessarily expect to find them. So yeah, you've got to keep your eyes peeled.
And you said you rarely, if you're fishing the smaller rivers, you rarely pre-bait, but the bigger rivers you would.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, Joe? You like when we went for our little walk, you were like, should we bait somewhere? Should we bait somewhere? But there's a couple of reasons I don't do that. And first of all is it was quite busy last night everywhere, wasn't it? You know, there was a good chance really that we might not have been able to get on where we'd baited. You know, and that's really frustrating as well. I don't think it would have actually made much difference. I could have baited the swim that I fished. Would I have had any more bites? Don't know if I would. They were coming through there anyway. So if you get your location right, you don't need to pre-bait. And I think with smaller rivers, that pre-baiting is less important. On a big river, you know, location is the hard bit, isn't it? Talk about the Thames, like where do you start? You start putting a bit of bait in, don't you? Whereas on a smaller river, where do you start? Well, you start by having a look and maybe finding some. So it's a slightly different approach, you know, given, it's more of a stalking approach.
Like last night I noticed they were pretty blooming active in the hours of darkness, weren't they? Is that a common thing for river carp, they show more at night?
Yeah, I mean they did show between us before we started getting bites, didn't we? But funnily enough, although they showed between us and we did have a couple of bites each, it really kicked off once it got light. So yeah, that early morning feeding spell is really important, really important. Yeah, it just depends. I think on lakes it sort of goes through cycles, doesn't it? You'll have daytime bites, and then 2 weeks later everybody will be catching them at night. So certainly, like in terms of barbel, for instance, they spend their days stuck up underneath the snags and the underhangs, and then when it goes dark, that's when they come out. So I think carp are a little bit similar as well. They're quite nocturnal on these small rivers, so yeah.
But I guess from what you're saying then is you don't have to be putting in long sessions, you know, river sessions, a few hours at a time.
Not at all.
Sometimes plenty enough, just
Not
pick
at
the
all.
key times.
That's right. I mean, look at us, Joe. We fished for 8 hours, maybe a little bit longer last night for quite a few bites between us, like 13 bites or something. You know, would you want to fish for 48 hours like that? I'm exhausted already. I really am. So, yeah, it's perfect for people who've got busy lives. You know, you don't have to go and sit down the lake for days on end. You don't have to pre-bait, you don't have to spend loads of money. Tackle's cheap. Often the fishing's cheap, isn't it? This is on a cheap day ticket. Where we were fishing last night is a free bit, you know, so yeah, it's accessible to everybody.
It's nice to be a little bit more of a roaming approach as well, isn't it? Where you haven't got a barrow load of gear and lugging everything about. I mean, we've got bare minimum, haven't we?
Definitely. You sort of do away with the trappings of carp angler life. Makes you feel, I think, a little bit more connected to what's going on around you. Yeah. I love a power barrow as much as the next man, Joe, I really do. But it's been nice, you know, this trip. We've just had a mat, a couple of rods and a chair to sit on last night. Not much sleep.
Yeah, mate, it's been, as Nick says, lovely times.
Lovely times, yeah.
Well, as you can see from my backdrop, we've ended up where we started, back at Oli's house. We gave it another hour or so down the river. There was nothing to be seen, no signs to go on. And like he said, in these kind of conditions, you wouldn't expect them to be doing much. And who can blame them? That's exactly what we want to be doing, very little. But all in all, a massively enjoyable session, and hopefully you're going to be inspired to give it a little go yourself next year on June the 16th. I certainly am. I think I'm going to make it an annual trip now for myself. There's plenty of carp across England in lots of different rivers, and you find them in some places where you just wouldn't expect them to. So yeah, get out there, have a look and give it a go. Well, in the first episode of Carp Angle, we touched a little bit on mental health and mental health awareness and the benefits of fishing for exactly that. Now, Dan got in contact with us. He's a transformational life coach who also does a bit of carp angling himself, and he's invited us down to have a little chat today to talk about a few bits and pieces that hopefully you'll be able to benefit from yourselves. So, Dan, first of all, a transformational life coach. How did you get into that?
Well, Joe, 20 years in the making, really. I many years ago, I had my own struggles with my own mental health. Addiction, mental health, real problems, ended up in hospital, and needed to change, needed to make a change. And I just took my mental health more seriously. And I went off and I started to build a life for myself, whereas prior to that, I really struggled to kind of function in the world, really struggled with kind of life in general. And went off, and got on with life, started building a business, had a family, all of the stuff, you know what I mean? And it was as a result of really focusing on my mental health that I was able to kind of make those improvements and kind of build a life that now, I love. A few years ago, I'd just come out the back end of kind of having my own business, and it just got to a time where I'd spent so much time, I was really interested in it, and I did a bit of kind of supporting other people and stuff, and I just thought, you know what, now's the time. And I always kind of veered away from it, but I just felt like, my life's in a situation now where I'd really like to give back, do some stuff, work with other people, not only just share my own experience, but also to give people space to kind of have their own experience, do you know what I mean? And to kind of try and help them on a day-to-day basis, be there for them when they're struggling, and help other people out to improve their mental health, and not just their mental health, but their mind, their the whole package. Do you know what I mean? Just to improve their lives so that they're happier, more content people. Really,
you get that quite a lot in life, don't you? With various different things, and people have suffered from whatever it is, and whether it's like an alcohol addiction or any particular thing, and then recovered from that, they kind of have this desire to help others, but from the other's point of view, it's nice to get help from someone who's been in that same situation.
Yeah, I mean, you're right that a lot of people do kind of veer into that kind of line of work because I suppose they feel kind of saved in a way. Do you know what I mean? Like they've had that experience themselves where they've been in kind of a real dark place and then they've come out of it and they've got something to offer, other people coming up the line, if you like. So but people's experience is important, but what I've also learned is, being able to just listen and just to be able to support, and actually for people to come to their own conclusions as well about their own mental health. Do you know what I mean? Giving people space to have that experience, and that's what coaching's really about. It's not all about me kind of going, I identify with that, this is what I've done. It's also giving people that time to kind of, be curious about thinking differently and to kind of challenge themselves and to look at goals that they got for their life and give them that kind of, and that's what I love doing. I just love that, and I've been doing it now a while, and I just love seeing the lights come back on, if you like, in people's eyes when, they realise that they can do stuff. They overcome a certain way of thinking or a certain way of kind of behaving, and, they get this kind of.
So give us some examples then. What sort of people come into you with?
Mate, all sorts. People of all different ages. And I love that about the job. I don't really niche into any certain area. So I've got all safeguarding. So I deal with young people. So like 15 to 19-year-olds, but also adults. Grown men right up to 50 years old, and they'll come with. There's some of them just come and go, I just don't feel right. Do you know what I mean? I'm not happy, I'm not content, I want to do this, but I'm always thinking I can't. Do you know what I mean? I'm always kind of, my own thinking is blocking me off from achieving stuff, and that can be all sorts. People who want to change their career, people who are in this kind of bad relationship loop, you know what I mean? So like every relationship just falls apart, and they want to know why. And the difference between coaching and therapy, like counselling, is very much solution-based. So it's kind of very much like we don't need to look too far back in the past for like patterns of why. Let's look at going forward. Let's look at how we can improve it. What can we do? I love it. It's
okay,
great.
So what are the key kind of elements that you're passing on to people, getting them to do to help them improve their levels of happiness or life in general?
Yeah, so it's varied. I do some work with like cognitive behavioural therapy, which is very much about like kind of looking at thinking, which creates emotion and the actions that we take. So, and that's slowing people down so they can really spot it. So we might work with kind of, like certain models where we just literally write down the thought and the feeling that comes with that and what action we take on it, and just slow it down enough that people can see the pattern first, and then maybe you can disrupt it enough to go, why don't you try and do this? And I'm a great believer, there's a saying which is you can't think your way into a better way of acting, you can only act your way into a better way of thinking. And it's like, it's kind of, it's really, for me it's been really true. Like if you think of your physical health, like if you want to get fit, you don't go to the gym and after the first session you come out and go, I'm fit, you know. And it's the same with mental health. You know, you've got to work at it, and you have to take risks. You have to be brave. You do have to make decisions and do stuff. So if you're like, you have social anxieties, you know, you've got to be brave and kind of step out and give it a go, you know. And that's what I try and really encourage people and champion them to, like, step out their comfort zones and try stuff. And I think by trying the actions, then the thinking will start to change a lot of the time. So it's actually, a lot of people, you know, taking fishing for example, you're sitting there bivvying, think they can think their way out of things, and you can't. You know what I mean? In my experience, it is about, you know, trying new stuff, and sometimes people just need that support to do that. You know, so that's kind of what I do, try and do. So they come with all sorts.
Right, okay. So there's one particular book I've read over the years, which I'm always recommending to people. Can't recommend it enough, and it's What Happy People Know. I think it's called by Dan Barker or something like that,
Okay.
Baker maybe. Anyway, there's various tips in there which are like your elements of the keys to happiness, if you like. So one of them is gratitude.
Yep.
Hugely important, isn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of people take everything for granted, but you know, there's a fantastic saying, it's like, what if you awoke tomorrow with only what you're grateful for today?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and most people take so much for granted, you know, they'd wake up with nothing.
Yeah.
But if you think about what you could add to that list, you know, like air, food, family, friends, you know, all of that kind of thing, it's so important, isn't it?
Absolutely, Joe. I mean, I'll bring a journal with me fishing sometimes, and I will do gratitude lists. I'll, you know, do even to-do lists. I'll do stuff that kind of, you know, so that it doesn't get clogged up in my mind. But the gratitude list thing is really, you know, is something I've done for years. I got it from another self-help kind of thing or environment that I was involved in. It's kind of like we were always encouraged to write a gratitude list, because we get caught up in like thinking we ain't got the best of this and we haven't got the best of that, and we forget, you know, just the basics. And whenever I encourage people to write a gratitude list, I never encourage them just to write the word like food, family, shelter, you know, my job. I try and enlarge on it. You know, why are you grateful for food? Do you know what I mean? Really kind of like, why are you grateful for your family? Why are you grateful for this stuff? You know, and really kind of, because what it'll do, it will sink in a bit more, you know, and then, you know, having that experience of feeling gratitude can really at times can shift you out of a certain mindset. You know what I mean?
Well, another thing I read is that the brain's only capable of feeling fear or love at one time. So if you apply them to positive and negative, and so if you're feeling, you know, fearful of something, which is normally a negative emotion, isn't it? You can overpower that simply by focusing on what you're grateful for, you know, and so it's basically replacing that negative with a positive, isn't it? You know, and that is such a powerful tool to be able to use.
And it is, but it takes time to cultivate as well. It's not, you know, like I said about the physical, it's not an overnight matter. It's not something that you can think, I tried that. It's like meditation. I love to meditate, you know, we're fishing, so it's not difficult to find, you know, time to meditate just for 10, 12 minutes every day, you know, just to try and slow my thinking down. You know, and it's not about not thinking. It's not about, you know, people go, I can't meditate, I just keep thinking all the time. It's like, you know, it's just about noticing them, you know, and letting them go maybe. And kind of.
So, sorry, like a lot of people, they say, oh, meditate, it's completely alien to them. What's your meditation? Is it just, are you just listening to some...
Yeah, a little bit of music. I get connected with my breath. So it's like, if we're talking about gratitude, you know, there's nothing more grateful than acknowledging the fact that you're breathing. You know,
that's
like,
it. And
you know, that's our basic. We come in breathing, we go out. It's the first thing we do. It's the last thing we do. But yet, most of the time in between, we pay it no respect. Do you know what I mean? And I think, as a human, if you know, for me, without getting too kind of, you know, and I know you love your kind of like spiritual side of stuff, Joe, but like, you know, for me to get connected to the breath, you know, is a powerful thing. Do you know what I mean? I get up in the morning and think, oh, I'm breathing, you know, and gives me that time just to...
Conscious breathing.
Yeah, conscious breathing, you know, and give myself... And that's what I do. And I use the breathing as the anchor for my meditation. So if I'm ever, you know, if I think, oh, I've got to get that milk when I'm on my way out, you know what I mean? Like if a thought comes in, I just come back to the breath and just give myself that time. And, you know, it doesn't happen overnight. You know, I'll guarantee anybody, any of your listeners, try it for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, consistently, every day, 10 or 12 minutes. You will feel better, think better, and behave better.
Yeah, well,
guaranteed.
Scientifically, there's a great TED talk on that.
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
that. And rhythmic breathing makes your brain function in a more, cognitive manner.
Yeah. And a lot of the stuff we're talking, there's this thing about kind of, we do so much time looking outside. Do you know what I mean? Like looking at what we haven't got, and we talked about a little bit about with the gratitude, but it's like, and a lot of the problems with mental health, I find, is, we're always focusing on, we're always focusing on everybody else. So it's like I will judge my insides by your outside. So what I think you're going through, and you look how happy you look, and I don't feel that happy. That can affect me. That can make me feel less than, not happy with my lot. And the truth is, we've all got our stuff. We've all got, we all have mental health, just like we all have a physical health. An emotional health. We all have mental health. So when people think mental health, no, it's not for me. Well, mate, it is, because you have a mental health. And then the question is, how good is it? And slipping into the stuff, about, you talk about it on some of your videos, Joe, about kind of the universe and how we pay it back and how we can, that stuff's important as well. It's like, I treat people how I want to be treated. Try to be. I try. And that's the thing. It's about effort. It's not about perfection. It's about progress. It's about just changing the lens, if you like, what you look through, and just.
Sorry, and what you touched on then about comparing yourself to others. There's a thing I read once, and it's a perfect example of that. Is you should never compare yourself to others, because there'll always be others that are better off or worse off than yourself. So exactly what you were just saying, really. But also, focusing on what you just touched on, focusing on your problems and all this. When you put all your mindset into that, you just attract more of that, don't you? You kind of need to focus on what you want and not what you don't want, and suddenly life becomes a lot easier.
That's right. So that's big, so in the new age, if you like, right, that's what they call manifesting. Yeah, so the kids are all into manifesting nowadays.
The law of attraction.
Yeah, the law of attraction, manifesting what we want.
Power of positivity.
And the fact is, I'm happy to say, manifesting is the new prayer. Manifesting
like
is
the
really,
modern religion is the universe.
Yeah, the modern.
It's not like modern. It's like the natural way of how it should be anyway.
The thing about the universe is it's all encompassing. It's everything.
It's everything.
It's everything. So that's why people are attracted to it, because there's no old boy with a grey beard, or there's none of that stuff. It's just about, it's everything. You are part of everything, and I love that. I love that concept, and and manifesting is very much about that. Don't get me wrong. You go on too much social media, there's a few, some go through my thing where they go, like this, and you'll have $10,000 tomorrow morning. Let's be real. But again, manifesting and praying, or whatever you want to call it, it takes time. It takes time to kind of, you, like you say, you've got to continue with the positive thoughts. You've got to kind of continue it. You've got to kind of, and that's the one thing is, I like to call it disrupting your thoughts. Try and disrupt your thoughts. So just slow yourself. And that's why meditation's good, journaling's good. You can really, journaling is great, because as a pen, you write it down and there's no denying it. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like it's a real denial breaker, journaling, because it's like, you write it down and it's there in front of you. This is how and some people journal, like you can buy these journals. I've got this one where, it has different sections, so it gets me focused. What does home mean to you? What are you grateful for? What's on your bucket list? So it actually kind of, it begs you a question. It begs you a question, do you know what I mean? And I don't do it every day, but I will sit down and just flick it open and go, right. And stuff will come, do you know what I mean? And then,
Go on, you mentioned bucket list, and again, that's something that I've always said to people is like, imagine you got told you've only got 5 years to live, right? Now write down 5 things that you'd do in those 5 years if that was the case.
Yeah.
Do those 5 things, and at the end of them 5 years, write another list.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And not just like your bucket list of things you want to do, but where you want to end up is really important, isn't it? I've drifted through my life not really having any particular end goal, not really knowing where I want to go, and as a result, how can you get to somewhere where you don't know where you're going? And I think a lot of people end up, their whole lives are like that, and then suddenly they're 60 years old and it's like, what happened, But and now I've got somewhere where in my mind where I want to be in 10 years time, and I think that's really important, because otherwise, what are you doing here?
Yeah, and I think bucket list is another expression for goals. It's about like like you fine example. I'm sure, most people, if they told they had a certain time left, would start making some goals. Why wait until you've only got a certain time left?
Exactly.
And you touched on something earlier about the kind of the fear and love thing, which is like how we base a lot of our decisions on. And a lot of people that I see, they've got to a point where the fear's that great or the love's that great. So they've got something they love that much that they don't want to lose, so they'll do something about it. Or they've got something that they're so fearful about that they need to do about it because it's holding them back so much. And they're always the strong kind of, they are the strong determinations of like people wanting to make change. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And goals is a great one. And I use certain models that support the goal. So you can look at kind of, you have a goal, you have like a thing that you want to do, but also it's really important to like, what's going to block me from doing this goal? So it's really important to look at what's going to actually block me, because a lot of people go, right, I'm going to have this in 5 years' time, but haven't considered that at the moment they don't have the mindset to get there. So it's like, let's look at the blocks, and what support do you need? What do you need? What do you actually need to get to that place? Because you might not be able to do it alone. You might need people. You might need some, a certain amount of money. You might need, So it's really important to, and that's one of the other pitfalls that people, I find, is like we set unrealistic goals, and that's terrible for your mental health. Like setting unrealistic goals, even daily ones. I have it with people with to-do lists. I've been a to-do list person for 20 years, and a good to-do list, if I put 10 things on there, if I get 6 done, that's a good day. Yet people use them to beat themselves up with. You know what I mean? Oh, I've had a, and it's, you've got to be more realistic with this stuff, and I think that really supports people's mental health as well, and so.
See, I think even like the law of attraction's worth kind of touching on, isn't it? There's another, is it Think, Grow Rich? Is on YouTube.
I think I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen
that's quite
some
interesting as well. But it kind of talks about the science behind it, if you like, and what it is it's like desire, isn't it? So you've got that desire of what you want, that fuels the action. Yep. Which fuels the success. It's kind of like a triangle, if you like.
Yeah, and so the problem in that is the thing that's going to let a lot of people down with poor mental health is the thinking. So you've got the desire, you take the, like a healthy, someone with healthy mental health will have the desire, take the action, get the result. But what people forget is in between those 3 points is there is people that struggle. Do you know what I mean? They don't feel like they deserve it. They don't feel that they can achieve it. They've been maybe told from a young age they're no good, or there'll be blocks. There'll be blocks in their thinking. There'll be limiting beliefs. Oh, he could do it. I can't. You know what I mean? And that's where poor mental health starts to come in. And then we get resentful, and then we hate everybody, and then it's everyone else's fault because we don't want to look at ourselves. Because and there's this spiral with it, and I would say as a disclaimer, and I think we're going to go on to kind of how we can support each other as well with mental health. But if you're really struggling, and there's been stuff in the press, even in the fishing angling press recently, about people that have sadly taken their own lives and stuff like that. If you're really struggling, and that's suicidal thoughts, huge amounts of time isolating, all of that sort of stuff, it's important to signpost. You can go and see your doctor. Do you know what I mean? First and foremost, go and see your doctor.
I'd say first and foremost, speak to your family and friends, innit? Because it's important to, like you to touch on earlier. Sometimes just getting that out, talking about your issues and to someone is enough. Like, you don't even need a response sometimes. But obviously, there are situations where you might need to take yourself to the doctors. But I think ultimately, this is just my personal kind of thing. It's just I've seen people that have suffered more from the tablets that the doctors have given them.
Joe, I don't disagree with it, and I've seen it myself. I just think that, but I've also seen success stories with it as well. And I've been around a lot of it, and I have seen quite close to me, people that it works for, where there is a chemical imbalance, you know, with serotonin and stuff that goes on chemically within the brain that, you know, needs to be replaced. So there are situations, but yeah, you know, and the other thing that doesn't get talked about, we talk a lot about how we can support people that are struggling, but also it's important to talk to the people that might be on the end of it. You know, how can you support somebody who is struggling, you know, because, you know, a lot of the time we're not always well equipped for that, you know, and the greatest tool is listening. You know, and not listening, you know, as humans, we listen to respond. So when you're talking, I'm thinking, I know what I need to say next. Yeah, you know, and yet in conversations, a lot of the time, people just want to be heard. Do you know what I mean? People just want silence so that they can talk. And I'm not talking about, you know, if you've got a mate and you're good friends and you can, you know, I'm not talking about kind of co-signing people's bullshit warrant, if I can say that, you know what I mean? Like I'm, you know, and saying, yeah, I agree with you, mate. Yeah, that's rubbish. You know, actually support people. Do you know what I mean? Like, what you can, you know, have you got any thoughts about what you could do about it? You know, do you need any support? You know, and also the other thing is very, very much related to kind of bereavement. You know, a lot of the time we'll talk to a friend who we know is struggling, and then we won't. You know, if it's in this environment, we'll leave the lake and we'll go home and we won't bother texting them. We won't keep in, you know what I mean? And it's the same, you know, people experience that with bereavement. Someone passes away, they might get loads of calls for the first 2 weeks, and then they're on their own with it, you know, and it's the same with, you know, these mental health issues. It's like, be consistent with your friends that you know might be going through something. Be consistent, just even if it's a little text, even if they don't reply, be consistent. Don't think, well, he didn't reply to the last one, I don't need to send another one. You know, that sometimes that contact can just be enough for them to think that someone's thinking about them. Yeah. You know, and
like you say, like if you can get them out, if you notice these signs in your friends, you know, it's worth doing what you can to kind of help them, isn't it? Whether that's just getting them out fishing, taking them down the pub for a pint and having a chat. But like you say, it's that whole thing. It is okay to not be okay, and you know, people need to talk about it rather than just storing these issues up in their head and suffering as a result. You know.
Yeah. I mean, I agree totally. You know, and I just think there's ways that we can support each other. You know, we you know, onto the fishing bit. You know, we either go for solitude or we probably go for a social. And it's just, you know, choosing those wisely. You know, you want to spend time on your own, spend time on your own, but don't isolate. You know, I always think to myself, when I go fishing, and when I leave, I want to feel better than when I turned up. You know, I want to feel better than when I turn. I don't want to go home with the same problems all the time. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to. And with the social, go with people that you want to go fishing with. You know what I mean? Hang out with people that you like. You know what I mean? Who you can talk to, who you can, you know, have them chats with. You know, that you might need to have with. You know, and I think it's really important, Joe.
Awesome. Well, mate, I'm sure we could have sat here chatting all day about this, but obviously we wanted to keep it fairly short because we didn't want to lose people.
No, yeah, I understand that, Joe, totally. You know, there's loads more that could be covered. You know, I would just, encourage people, you know, like you've said, you know, talk to people, but talk to the right people. And if you're on the end of someone trying to talk to you, you know, just listen. Do you know what I mean? Don't think you need to solve their problems. You don't need to be empathetic every time. You don't have to be sympathetic. Just listen. Definitely. You know, you don't have to have the answers.
And I guess, you know, there are people out there who haven't necessarily got someone who will listen to them, but, you know, people like yourselves and even me, you know, if you want to send us a message, you know, then you're more than welcome to. So, sweet. Top man.
Top man.
Thanks
nice one,
Dan.
Joe.
Now, when I hear the word Stoneacres, instantly I have these images of some epic carp popping into my head. It's famous for massive, long, scaly leviathans, and it's also very well known for being extremely weedy and extremely tricky. The kind of water that makes grown men cry. We've come here today to catch up with our good friend Terry Dempsey. Last time we were out with Tel, we were at Walthamstow, and since then he's been targeting this water pretty intensely, to be honest with you. He's put in a lot of work, a lot of bait, but we're going to hear a bit more about that shortly, as well as hearing about his results that he's had very recently. It's a stunning day, lovely and warm, and what an awesome lake this is. Let's go and catch up with Tel and hear a bit more. Right, Tel, the mecca that is Stoneacres. First of all, mate, when did you first come up here? How big is it? And what do you love about the place?
Yeah, how you doing, Joe? I first come up here, a couple of mates of mine were fishing down here, and I heard about it sort of early 2000. I heard about this complex, and I heard about Stoneacres, and I knew that it was a big lake. It's 50 acres or so, 50 odd acres. It's quite deep as well, all over. It's not a lot of shallow. There's a few bars. There's one big island in it, so there's a lot of open water. But it's a cracking looking lake. It's in the middle of nowhere down here, so it's a long way from London. It's a 2-hour drive for me to get here, and that's early in the morning if I leave early. If I leave later, it's a 3-hour drive through the traffic. But it's a beautiful lake, and I've been down here. This is my second proper season fishing it, and you know, it's a tricky lake. It's really, really hard. It was a lot harder than I expected when I first started fishing it. So yeah, the fish are really worthy, and that's what I like about it. It's a big challenge.
Yeah.
And to get a fish, the fish are really worthy, and they're stunning fish. The water is like tap water. It's gin clear, so it's there when you catch them or you see them on the bank. If someone catches one, they're generally really dark and they've got beautiful colours of reds and all the purples and that. So.
I was going to say that I've seen pictures of a fair few over the years, because you know this place has been in the press for a long time, hasn't it? You know. And like the length of them, there's so many different looking ones, the scale patterns. I can see why you want to travel, you know, half the way across the country, but a good sort of
distance,
2 hours
yeah.
or so, 2.5 hours to get here.
I drive past a lot of lakes to come here, but for me, the quality of the fish here are second to none.
And it takes a lot of commitment to fish this kind of water, doesn't it? Because you know you're going to be facing a lot of blanks in a year. Yeah,
it's rock hard. As I say, it's 50 acres. I don't know how many fish there is in here, but there ain't that many. And although most of them are decent fish, so you know there's probably less than one fish an acre, which is low stock, and the weed is horrendous. So everything's up against you. But I've been coming down here and loving my sessions. My son comes down here with me. He likes it down here, and he puts a rod out for the tench because it's a prolific tench lake. And I've had a lot of tench over the last. Since I started fishing here, I've had over 50 tench.
Wow.
So, you know, but it is a special lake. I love it. I mean, I have fished Christchurch as well, which is another lake on the complex. That's a special lake as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's water all around us and big carp all around us. So, yeah, I can see why you come down here. Well, yeah, it's definitely a world apart from the last place we fished with you at Walthamstow. Obviously, a lot less quiet, a lot less air pollution.
Yeah, totally different place, isn't it, Joe?
But as far as, you know, tactics and mindset are concerned, you know, we like to sort of tap into your mind on that side of things. So let's have a cup of tea and then chew the fat.
Yeah, definitely. Let's do that, eh?
Okay, Charles, talked a little bit about the lake. Let's talk a little bit about your approach in general, because it's a pretty severe, you know, extreme conditions, such, isn't it, with all this weed?
Yeah, Joe. The first time I started fishing down here, I started fishing from the bank. I was doing what I'd normally do on most lakes that I'd ever fished, and that's sort of put a float out, have a cast about, and I found straight away that the weed was horrendous in here. Anyway, I carried on fishing from the bank, casting, and it soon became apparent that the weed gets so bad in the summer that you need a boat. You need a boat just to sort of, not just to get your rods out into the water, but actually get your rods back because the weed is so bad. So since over the time that I fished here, the nights that I fished here, I've used the boat most nights. I've put my rods out of a boat and gone out, and so when you start fishing from a boat, it's a totally different type of fishing to what you're normally doing. It's a totally different, it opens up a completely new world. If you're looking through a bucket, you can see the bottom, you know, and you're going out and you've got access to the whole lake. So I love using the boat. I fished Raspberry 1 for quite a few years, so I know what the drill is with fishing a boat. So yeah, it's been completely different to my normal approach.
Yeah, it makes me chuckle because a lot of people, you know, they sort of see people using boats and it's almost like, it's cheating. But actually using a boat to do what you're doing is a whole new skill set of itself. You know, it takes a lot of practice and it can be really hard work and really frustrating, can't it?
Yeah, it's quite daunting if you go out in the lake and you're out in the middle of the big pond, and like where I'm fishing out in open water, it's easy to get lost out there. even if you go and try and find the same the same spot twice, there's so much expanse of water out there. There's so much to look at. When you're at the bank, you've got markers that you look towards and stuff like that. So when you're out in the lake, you've got none of that. You really are. It's totally different, and it takes a lot of getting used to. You know, it takes a lot of getting used to. It takes a lot of getting used to put your rods down, to come back with your rods.
The line lay.
The line lay with a weed. I mean, as you see, I'm having to use 2 back leads. I'm going out, dropping my rod, coming back, and then I'm going back out there and laying back leads along my lines.
So you've got one at about 60, 80 yards?
Yeah, about 60, 70 yards out I've got a back lead, and I've got one sort of 20 yards out.
Which is like a captive back lead
Captive back
you can
lead.
just kind of flick off as kind
Yeah, so I'm having to
modified
do
version.
that just to pin my lines down, but that's mainly because of the floating weed beds. Because there's a lot of milfoil in here, weed, and it's broken up, and the strands are like 20 foot long, and there's massive clumps of it, and I mean, I see a weed bed go past my swim yesterday, and it was like Wimbledon tennis court. It was massive. It was just like a proper, it was just thick. It was just like a tennis court. It just went straight through my swim, and I'm my fingers crossed that it didn't catch my line, and it didn't. It didn't. So my back leads were working. But then later in the day, a small one come past and caught me, didn't it?
Yeah, and that totally took you out, didn't it?
Totally
I mean,
took
you were
me out.
hoping to leave them out when they'd been out a couple of days already, and
Yeah.
like you talked before about the fact that you think it can be an advantage sometimes just for that bait to be out a bit longer,
in the
because most
water,
people
yeah.
are reeling them in within 24 hours.
Yeah, on most
or
lakes.
48, So yeah, do you think they just almost like they've seen it there over a couple of days, and in the end they think it's safe because it's been there that long?
Yeah, there's a bit of
the
that.
water, is washed out.
Yeah, there's definitely a bit of that, and also there's a bit of they get scared. The carp are scared of when we use the boats. So if we go out in a boat, there's a chance they might not come back into the area for a good 24 hours. So sometimes when it's been out there a couple of days, there's been no disturbance from the boat out there for a couple of days. And also, this is a low stock lake. So with a low stock lake, the chances are of a fish actually coming across your swim are going to be a lot less than they are in another lake. So the longer it's out there, you're giving it a bit more of a chance for something to come along, because as we said earlier, there's only 1 fish an acre. So, there's a good chance in your swim you might have 3 or 4 acres of water in your swim, which is as big as some small lakes, and you might have 3 or 4 fish in that, so that's what you're up against. So leaving it out in the water for periods of time is definitely an advantage on these type of lakes.
They're super hard lakes, but it's these other things just make them even harder, don't they? Like the drifting weed beds. I mean, it's normally a bit later on in the year, isn't it? But like I say, because it's this milfoil, not the Canadian. It's the Canadian that's normally uproots a bit later on, isn't it?
Yes.
But this stuff is just
it's uprooting
an
already.
absolute nightmare, mate.
Well, it's coming past, and I mean, you see me yesterday just to reel my rod in, and I couldn't get my rod in. I couldn't get through. I had to break it off by hand all the way out to my spot. I couldn't lift it. It just doesn't lift it at all.
No, it looked like,
and it seems to just grab the line.
Looked like a workout in itself, just trying to get you.
Well, the thing is, up until like last year, I was fishing this last summer, and I was having an horrendous time with the weed, but also I was using small boilies as well, and I was getting hounded by a tench. So every night I was getting all 3 rods wiped out by a tench, and then getting the rods back out, getting all the weeded again. The weed bugs will come along, wipe you out, get your rods back in, and then you get wiped out by a tench, then the weed bugs, then the tench, then the weed bugs, then the tench, and
yeah, mate. Well, I can see why it's such hard work, but ultimately lots of prizes to be had. Talking of which, we'll hear your stories of what you've caught out of here so far in a little while. But for now, I wouldn't mind nipping over to Willow and seeing if there's a little chance in the edge whilst we've got some nice light and the weather feels good.
good time of the day as well now, isn't it?
But obviously, mate, if one of these goes, just give us a quick call and we'll be round as quickly as possible.
You'll hear me screaming.
Awesome. Right, got the buzz on. Time to get the rods out.
Good stuff.
Well, what a cracking little lake this is. Willow on the Linch Hill complex. Don't know how big it is, I'd probably say about 5, 6, maybe 7 acres. But there's some mega carp in here. I literally know next to nothing about it. I did watch a little bit of Scott Lloyd's underwater film on here, and he had some really cool creatures. I've seen a couple of photos of other ones, and yeah, certainly some nice carp to go at. And it doesn't normally get a huge amount of pressure. There is a few people on here at the moment by the looks of it, but from what I can gather, they've gone to work, so they're working close by and then doing the nights on here, save them a hotel bill. Anyway, this first swim I've come to is a massive, great clear area just down in front. It looks like it drops down a little bit deeper. Looks like it's polished off. So, also this swim is fairly overgrown. I can't imagine it gets fished a huge amount. So that's prime kind of little place to put a little bit of bait and come and check on in 20 minutes or however long it takes us to do a lap. It's 3 little handfuls. Nice little mixture of bits and pieces. It's got hemp, some hemp and snails actually from carp particles, and maples. Got some boilies, some tigers. Even got a bit of bloodworm in there. Yeah, nice stinky little mix that hopefully is going to attract them into having a little munch. I won for luck. There's a lot of carp in this lake, allegedly. I've got no idea where they're hiding. We've done nearly a full lap and we've just seen a couple scooting about on their own. Flying around like absolute nutters, the sort of fish that don't look like they're going to stop and feed. Look like there might have been a few the other side of the island on the surface, but there is a guy fishing that kind of water, so just as I've said, that one's rolled out here. There is quite a lot of colour in the water, so I don't know whether they're on the munch today perhaps, you know. If they're not in the edge, they're clearly in the edge quite a lot in here because there's so many blatant spots under the trees and even in front of some of the swims. I mean, this is a perfect example of the difference. That first swim that we baited up was literally polished all in front of it, whereas this one, you can see the gravel's a little bit darker. There's weed growing down here as well. So, you know, it obviously doesn't get visited in the same way that that one does. I've got a feeling that that one's sort of in between a couple of main overhangs or snags, if you like, and it's probably quite a busy route. So, fingers crossed, go back there now, spend 10 minutes looking, might see one drift through. Hopefully they've already been having a little munch, but it does feel quiet. It does, you know, you kind of, when you've done a lot of fishing, you get a feeling of when it's going to happen and when it's not, or when the lake's on and when it's not. And yeah, this is one of them days where it does feel like it could be a struggle. But we won't let that stop us, will we? Carry on. Right, well, lo and behold, just got back to the first spot I baited. Stood there for 20 seconds. And I saw a fish come through, then another one, and that one looked like it dropped down. So I think they've been in there having a munch. So hopefully, it's a golden opportunity. Just going to give this hook a little touch up, get a solid bag on there. I might even just use the pole to drop it out with, just to save any unnecessary disturbance. well, that absolutely tore off. Took about 30 yards of line on its first run, and we can't, bloody hell. We can't let him go too far out because then he's got the opportunity to kite round, and we don't know what's up these tree lines. Knowing from the rest of the lake, from what I've seen, they could be quite savage, so we've got to keep him in front. God, it's a tight clutch he's pulling off as well. Legs are shaking. Once again, that's, you know what, 10 minutes in the right spot. The more you look, the more you see, and all that, as Mr. Penning likes to say. Right, come on, Gil. It's a lovely dark common. Not a monster, but wow, the power of it. Oh, it's off again. That's the only trouble with these little short rods, you've not got quite as much cranking power. So I like to make up for that with a bigger reel. And I'm sure it helps me out on occasions, for sure. Right, this time maybe. Yes, come on, come on, come on. Whoa, slacking off, there we go, lovely. Buzz. Wicked, I'm well chuffed with that. Like I said, you know, walking around, it didn't feel like it was on at all, but found somewhere where there was some fish, gave him a little bit of bait and caught one. Result. Mega buzz. They always are, especially when they rip off like that. What a bite. You can't beat catching them in the edge, they just absolutely steam off. Well, I say, right little result coming over here and having a wander around catching one. Probably have another little look about. I reckon that spot's probably boned for now, but I've just topped it up again, so yeah, maybe we'll drop back on it a bit later on. But for now, should we go back and see Tell? Hear some of his stories, because I know he's had a couple of absolute chunks out of that lake, real special ones too. So yeah, be good to hear the story of them. Let's get you back, well, boy, girl. I reckon you're a boy, aren't you? Yeah. That's a nice little result, mate. Caught my first Linch Hill carp.
Yeah, brilliant. Well done.
Lovely little common.
Is that your first one, is it? Your first ever Linch Hill
off
carp?
the complex, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I only ever done one night before, and I lost one out of Christchurch on a 6-footer in the corner.
Yeah, nice result.
Yeah, it's good. I fought like an absolute demon as well. It was
Yeah.
good little buzz. And the camera was on the rod at the time when we got the bites. It was,
It's a lovely lake, that Willow, isn't it?
yeah, I was cracking that. And I mean, today it seemed like it was a little bit switched off, but there's obviously a lot of good fish in there. So yeah, well worth a punt.
Good angling, mate.
Cheers, mate. Yeah, so I wanted to talk a little bit about your approach on the lake. You've been baiting, well, obviously you've got more than one spot on the go, but there's one particular spot that you've been focusing your attention on. Is that right?
Yeah, been doing a few different bits and pieces this year. Fished on here a bit last year. Spent a lot of time sort of chasing my tail, not really knowing what I was coming up against, and every session I was a grueler. So this year I thought to myself, I'm just going to concentrate on a couple of different areas, get to know them first before I start, going all over the lake, and that's what I've done. And this year I've fished just two swims pretty much all year. One particular, I kept getting a lot of tench out of the swim, but I just felt as if there was carp feeding there as well. And I weren't putting a lot of bait in, but I was trickling it in regular on the same spot. So, every time I come on, even on the times I couldn't come, if I could get down here, I'd come down here and put some bait in. As I say, not loads, but enough just to keep trickling it in on the spot. And I just tench. Kept getting tench, and it, it really is soul destroying, because you're sure there's a carp out there. And but eventually I got 2 carp off the spot.
So leaders, tell us about that actual session then. Did you have to change anything?
Yeah, I've changed quite a lot because of the amount of tench that I was catching. I've messed around with different baits and different rigs. And then what I started to do was I started to revert back to the old-fashioned air rig, what we used in the old days, and I sort of started lengthening the hair every time I caught a fish, I lengthened the hair. So I've got a sort of little tape measure thing on my tackle box, and what I've done is I just started measuring my hair, and I realised if my hair was like 35 mil, I was getting tench, and then I went to like 38 mil, and I still caught tench, and it weren't until I took it over 40 mil, 45 mil. This is including the bait as well, that the tench started to slow down, and that's what happened. And the first session that I solely used really like hairs that I believe were too long for the tench, I caught a brace of carp, a 39 mirror and a 40-pound common, and two of the most favourite fish in here. And one, the mirror, had spawned out, and it was a fish that everyone had been after. A fish named the Bus.
Come and tell us about what happened from the bite then. Tell us the actual story.
It was looking pretty grim, to be honest. There was not a lot going on. I see the wind was pumping northeasterly. It was quite cold, considering it was like end of June. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, my rod went, and typically I thought it was another tench. Even though I was using long hairs, my mind is just conditioned to expect a tench. So that's what I've done, and I picked up my rod, and the weed here, as you've seen, Joe, is absolutely unbelievable, and I just couldn't even move my line or nothing. So I got in the boat, and I went out, and I started to peel the weed off about 40 yards out, still thinking I had a tench on. And I started peeling the weed off, and I must have got out to about 70 yards, and I was having a bit of a mare. You know, the wind was howling as well, and all of a sudden the rod was pulled out of my hand.
Still thought it was a tench up to this
Still
point.
thought it was a tench, and the rod was pulled out of my hand, and I had to loosen the clutch, literally, and it just whizzed off, and must have took another 40 yards of line off me. So
Wow.
Eventually I got above the fish, but when I see it come up, I just see this massive, like, heavily plated, like, looked like a fully scaled monster come up. Unbelievable sight to see. And I had a bit of a nightmare. I couldn't net it because of the wind and stuff, but eventually I did. I got it in the net eventually.
You kind of had to go up tide of it.
Yeah, I went upwind. I used the motor on the engine, which I was using a friend's boat. I don't normally use a motor on here anyway. I used the motor and I went up on wind and come down and landed it.
Awesome.
And then the following morning, the lake went flat calm, and there was a little bit of activity over where I was fishing, a couple of bits of bubbling and stuff like that, and I was quite keen as well. I thought maybe, you know, and then it just ripped off. Absolute belting take, took loads of line off me, and straight away I knew it was a carp, this one, and went out in the boat again to peel all this line off this weed off. And when I eventually got to the carp, it was just all bubbling up, and I was just pumping and pumping. This big deep common come up off the bottom, big dark common kicked off. So exciting fishing out in deep clear water.
Especially after, you know, going through 50 tench and all the nights and all the effort. All
worked
the
hard,
bait.
yeah.
You know, it's like that moment is just such a buzz, isn't it?
The thing
it's
is,
it's hard to keep you cool, isn't it?
yeah, that's why I love fishing these type of lakes. You know, they're not everyone's cup of tea. They really can give you a kick, and a lot of the time you always sit there thinking, you know, this, you know, it really does get to a point when you just think this is just too much hard work for the results you're getting. But when you do catch a carp out of a lake like this, or out of any sort of really hard low stock lake that you've had to work hard for, best feeling ever.
Mega creatures as well, and you know, like the way that you're applying bait, you know, I've talked about it before. The bigger fish tend to be the greedier fish, and you know, they've got a bit of control over their mates, haven't they? You know, so they almost bully others off of spots with. They've got a larder that they can.
Well, that's what we've got here.
So
I mean,
exactly what you try to create, really, isn't it?
A friend of mine who's been fishing this area as well with me, and we've been baiting it together. He's had a 41 as well. So we've had, in the last 2 weeks or two or three sessions, we've had pretty much 3 of the 40s.
3 bites, 3 40s.
Yeah, off the spot.
It's 10 40s in here out of like 50 fish. So just goes to prove exactly what you said about, you know, keeping the bait going in, and the big uns will you know, recognise it as a food source. It's a larder for them, isn't it?
It's just hard on a lake like this, because you know, you can still go long periods of time without catching, because just the nature of the low stock and stuff like that. I mean, I still don't feel, with all the nights that I've done on here, that I've actually even been on the fish properly yet.
Right.
You know, in all the nights that I've done on here, and that's how difficult this lake is. So I just keep going because these are the sort of places that I get a kick out of.
The ultimate buzz for you, mate, isn't it?
Yeah, like me and you go down the Rizzies in the winter, and in the summer I'm on the big pits.
Proper fishing.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, fingers crossed, mate. You might have one tonight, eh?
Be nice, wouldn't it? Yes, of course.
Well, we always look forward to catching up with Tel. We always have a good chuckle, and obviously it was super interesting to check out a little insight into how he fishes such tricky waters. You know, this kind of lake is not for the faint-hearted. I'm sure you've got a little taste of that throughout this feature. It's a pretty stressful game, and you're committing to a lot of time, a lot of hours on the bank for, you know, not a lot of reward. But obviously that's why we do it, and when it comes to it, them rewards are absolutely huge for us. You know, to other people it might not seem like a big reward, but the longer you wait, the bigger the buzz, and this lake is just full of epic carp. So on that note, we'll be keeping in touch with Tel, and if he does catch anything particularly special, then we'll be sure to be shooting up the road to get it on film.
Right, a story about my first carp that I ever caught, or the memories of my first carp that I ever caught. I can't remember how old I was. I must have been, I would say 12, 13, and fishing over on Dagenham Chase. We used to all go over there as mates, a little gang of us. Not really carp fishing, but just fishing for anything like, you know, bream, tench, whatever would come along basically. We'd only fish for a little while and then just start throwing stones and fighting all day. But this particular time, I can even remember what I was wearing. I was into the old skinhead sort of mod days, and I can remember I had like a pair of brogues on and a pair of stay press, and probably a Ben Sherman or something while I was fishing, something like that, an old grandad cardigan. Don't know why that stays in my mind, but it does. And I remember float fishing with a lobworm, and I've hooked into what turned out to be a little common, and it gave me the run around on the light tackle. And I can still remember the picture I had of it. I've lost it years ago. I wish I still had it, of me with this little common with my little green visor on, in all my mod gear, and a little common like that. Like, and to be honest, that kind of got me serious after that. Once I felt that on a little light bit of tackle, that was kind of what really got me into trying to catch more of them, and it's never stopped since.
Right, so a picture paints 1,000 words. The photo that I've chosen is actually taken by my good friend Scoey, and it was back on the boat pool at RK Leisure. Now, it was a particularly hot day. There wasn't much going on around the lake at all, and it was almost one of those days where you just fancied packing up and leaving it at that. Anyway, there's quite a few lads on the church lake that I met at my time on RK, and in doing so, become quite good friends, and a social wasn't a shy thing over there as well. And anyway, I was walking around and I found a few fish in what's known as the day only swim, sort of tucked in the corner right at the end of opposite Vince's. And there's a few fish there, and I just fired a few mixers out and left it at that. Didn't really pay much attention afterwards. Anyway, I've gone round onto an area known as the Causeway, and I was with John, another guy called John Hogan, a few other lads. There was a good group of us, and all of a sudden fish started taking. So without even mentioning where I was going, ran back round to my swim. So with that, I've set up a floater rod and I've started fishing for these fish. Anyway, I've now got a crowd of all these lads standing across the causeway, giving it some. Like, it was only friendly banter, but when you've all got them standing there, it really palves the pressure on. Anyway, after a few aborted takes and a bit of cheering off of the lads, one of the bailiffs, Terry, come round with Oli. And Oli said to me, he said, mate, if you don't get up that other end and get going on them fish, I'm going to get a rod out there. So with that, I've run round the other side, and there was about 10 minutes of running backwards and forwards. The lads telling me, no, they're back down here, no, they're back over there. And it was just, honestly, it was so funny. And the day only swim's quite a tight swim. You've got trees right above you. And Noddy here managed to get caught in the tree. Anyway, lost everything. And fortunately, Terry come round with his rod. So with that, I've run back round to Vince's, cast back out again, and this time I've hooked into one. And yeah, playing out on this soft rod was good fun. It was nice to have Terry there, netted the fish, and it was at that time that John took the photo. And yeah, it's one of those days and one of those sessions that I'll always remember, and one of those thoroughly enjoyable ones just because of the company. Because if it weren't for them lads being there, I don't think the capture and the day would have been the same.
Well, when you fish with Terry Dempsey, it's hard not to buzz off his enthusiasm, and it gave me a proper little taste for Walthamstow. So I had a day off after I was here with Tel, and then I came back yesterday, fished on the lower, fished a couple of different swims, and basically I saw something out the corner of my eye. I just saw the ripples, and no birds came up at all. So I thought, wow, when you've got nothing, something is everything. And at the end of the day, I had a rod out there earlier on in the day, but then moved. At the end of the day, came back to that area, put one out there, and at 4:30 it went. I had a proper old tussle with it, probably a good 10 minutes. It was just pulling, and trying to get to the right, trying to get to the left, and finally I got a glimpse of it, common, about 30 pound. Had a couple of rolls near the net, and then poof, the hook popped out. Oh, I was absolutely sick. After spending 3 days down here and only catching 4 little ones, I was ready for a good one, and yeah, seeing it probably made it even worse. However, I thought to myself, right, I know the zone they're in now. I'm going to line it up on Google Earth tonight and get into the swim that I need to be in to get to there. And yeah, spent a bit of time working out exactly the line angles and the distances, and got here this morning, put 3 singles out there, and within half an hour, right hand rod was away. Had a lovely old battle with it in the morning sunshine. Did get a bit hairy at one moment because it went past this bush down my right here, and it overhangs by quite a lot. And luckily I managed to get my tip right down and steer it back out into the lake. But anyway, I'm well chuffed because we've got a lovely Walthamstow common, 26.5 pound, and the day is young. It's a full moon at the moment. There's a upper 40 common in here, and this hasn't been getting fished a lot lately, so they're just starting to wake up, and they should be catchable. Well, they are, because I've had one and lost one, so fingers crossed we might have another one today. But in the meantime, let's have a look at him. Buzz. Well, you'll have to excuse the road noise. Right next to it here, but look at that. Lovely 26.5 pound dark old Walthamstow Warrior. Chuffed to bits with that one. Whew, massive old pecs on him. Definitely looks like an old one, that's for sure. But yeah, great way to start the day. Come on the full moon common. Right, quick snap and we'll get you back, mate. Well, those couple of days at Raysbury, mega fired up the old carp buzz, and I was just itching to get back up St Ives. With that weather, I knew the fish were going to be moving around a lot on the surface. 20 odd degrees sunshine, that's when the fish properly get moving about. And once they're moving about, obviously they're burning off energy, so they're going to be looking for food. So I come up about a week and a half ago, put a bit of bait in this swim here, and although I had it in the back of my head as somewhere I might drop into, I wasn't set on going in here. But when I got here, there's fish everywhere. They're just milling around on the top. Yeah, I probably should have put a couple of zigs out, but it's kind of not far off dark now. So yeah, I've just got my traps set, ready for the night and the morning. Not a lot of bait, just like a couple of handfuls of boilies over each rod. Got 2 rods on the end of a bar out here. It kind of drops off. So yeah, just at the end of that, as it starts sloping down, 2 on there, and then 1 up either margin. But yeah, mega buzzed up to arrive to see him moving about like that. Towards the end of last year, I was having a bit of a struggle on here just because they weren't really showing that much. So it'd be nice to get one under my belt quickly this year, get the old confidence levels back up again. Hopefully, old Starburst or the Friendly, they're the 2 main ones I'd like out of here now. Starburst was last out at £46, I believe, in October or November? November, yeah. So who knows how big that is now, but whatever size it is, I'll be more than happy to meet it. It likes its grub as well, so I'm surprised I ain't met it already, probably because I wasn't using that much bait last year. Might have to start filling it in. Come on, Starburst. Right, kettle's gonna get on and I am gonna chill out because I've had a migraine all day and it's really taken a life out of me, to be honest with you, like they always do. But yeah, good kip tonight and I'll be fully recharged, ready for tomorrow. And hopefully to hold a big one up for the cameras in the morning. Fingers crossed. Well, that gorgeous weather did not last very long at all. That first night, wind swung round, got super cold. Did see a small one out here yesterday morning, probably a stocky by the looks of it, but it was a carp and it was only about 20 yards away from, I should turn that kettle off. Yeah, about 20 yards away from one of my spots. So I did give it one more night in here. But I'll be honest with you, I've not seen anything else. Very little to go on. The lake's really busy. So I think I'll probably give it another couple of hours, then consider a move, or maybe even consider going home, because I had 2 nights at Raisbury and 2 nights here, and I need a bath, pen and ink. But I'm holding on to hope that there's still a chance of a bite this morning. I was just sitting here thinking, do you know what? I really fancy a chocolate croissant, but I haven't got any chocolate croissants. But I have got a stale croissant and a fake Snickers. So we're going to do a little artful bodger job and I'll let you know how it goes. Right, let's see what this is saying then. Look at that. Get a bit of focus on that. Whoosh. I know what you're all thinking. Oh, what can I do that with? What's my favourite chocolate bar? Man, that is serious. Big edge, innovation to the nation. Jesus. You're all going to be on it, you know it. Well, I was going to go home. I had a little look about. Shallow was very busy. In fact, the whole complex is busy, to be honest with you. Not sure why it's so much busier this year. But yeah, I've ended up on the back of the wind on the meadow, just because I thought, well, do I need to go home? I haven't really got a lot to go home for, other than a shower. So I thought I'd rough it for a bit longer and give this a go on the back of the wind here. Apparently a guy further down the bank saw a couple in front of him this morning. He's about 100 yards or so down there. And yeah, it's probably the warmest spot of the lake, or 100% the warmest spot of the lake. And now the sun's just poked its head out as well. It's really lovely. So I've spread 4 baits around the area, sort of 3 further out and 1 a bit closer, because I saw a little flat spot that came up out of nowhere. So yeah, dropped 1 on that. Scattered a little bit of bait about before the seagulls intervene, but just as it's getting dark, I'll put a kilo or so, just spread that over that area where those 3 rods are. And yeah, fingers crossed, something's gonna show up this evening. They tend to only really show in here in the evenings or the mornings. So yeah, if they are in the zone, then normally they'll let you know. Yeah, it feels good round here. Let's hope that they're up for it. Come on, the Carp. Oi, oi, Savaloy. Well, back down Long Reach again this week. Ended up doing 1 more night after doing a night on the meadow last time. I moved down to the end of Long Reach and saw a couple show in the morning out here. So put a little bit of bait in before I left, and then had a few days at home, caught up with the family with Easter. That was nice. And yeah, was itching to get back, but I didn't miss a lot because the weather has been atrocious. Been really cold the last few days. Crazy considering it was like 20 odd degrees last week. But one thing I've thought about the British weather being so changeable is it gives us something to talk about. I mean, what would we talk about? What would we moan about? Variety is the spice of life, so yeah, lap it up. Literally half hour ago there was a little bit of sleet in the air. Snowy, sort of sleety type stuff, only little fine bits, but yeah, real bitter, cold, northerly wind going on at the moment. But as you can see, I'm in the sun now and tucked out of the wind, so I'm actually pretty cosy wosy around here. Just hoping that they've been visiting the last couple of days, or they've had a little bit of a munch on these spots and they're going to come back tonight or in the morning or tomorrow. But yeah, eyes will be on the pond, keeping a good lookout. I've got quite a nice view from here. The views on Long Reach when you're on the long banks are generally kind of corridor views, but here I've got, yeah, nice little scope, so we'll see if anything shows, if we've got anything to go on, but hopefully for now it's going to happen here, and hopefully it's going to be old Starburst, because I reckon there's a good chance that could be the next bite. Just because it likes its grub, you know, it came out 4 times last year, it was more than any of the others. But what's most exciting about that one is last year it came out in autumn at sort of 46, 47 pound. So if it comes out before spawning, she could well be up there, close to the old 50 pound mark. But whatever she weighs, I'd be more than happy to meet her and show you her in the morning, hopefully. Right, on these big pits, there's one thing that I've found that's come in extremely handy, and that is binoculars. I got these Fortis ones last year. Other brands are available. These are particularly good. But yeah, the reason why I put off buying a pair of binoculars is because I didn't want to become one of them people. You know, like one of the things that really frustrates me is when you look up and someone's like that, looking at you. You know, you can blatantly see they're staring at you. It just freaks me out a little bit, to be honest. Or if you're playing a fish, you look up and everyone's got their binoculars on you, you know. For me, it's a bit weird, and yeah, I just didn't want to become one of those people. But, you know, I think it's just one of them things that happens, you know. You buy a pair of binoculars and you're looking for bubblers, or you think you see something show on the other side, so you're having a good look, and before you know it, it's, hey, what's he doing in that swim? Huh? 3 coffees already? You need to ease up on that caffeine, boy. What's Dave up to down the bottom there? Oh, Dave, put it away. He's on Pornhub again. Dirty bugger. So yeah, that's what happens. I warn you now, if you buy a pair of binoculars, you're going to become one of them people. Slippery slope. Oh, I tell you what, last week when I was on my way down here, went to the supermarket looking for coffee, and I saw this stuff. Flying start. I thought, it's a sign, it's an omen. I'm going to buy these and I'm going to get off to a proper flying start on the lake this year. Well, it's not a sign, it's not an omen, it's just a name of coffee, and it doesn't work. What have we got to report? Oh yeah, so last time I spoke to you, I was talking about binoculars. Well, the next morning, which was yesterday morning, I woke up, sitting there watching the lake, and I saw a guy appear on the far side. I've seen the old hands go down. I thought, oh, he's not, is he? Come on, mate. Up they come. Before he gets his binoculars to his eyes, I slip my bivvy. You're not getting me that easy, mate. And I stayed there for a good 5 minutes or so, make sure he got bored. Anyway, about an hour later, I thought, right, time to get the salopettes off. So I'm outside, slip them off, I look up, bang, he's there. He's got me, innit he? God, done me. So anyway, my initial reaction, which is a good one if you see that kind of thing, give it one of them. Straight away, they'll put them down. And anyway, he came around 5 minutes later and had a little chat with him, Dave. He's like, oh, I'm just still trying to get me bearings. Don't really give you a reason to be eyeing up who's in that swim, is it? Anyway, like I say, it's a slippery slope, the old binoculars game, so probably better off not buying any. Yeah, so I moved around here yesterday morning, and It's been very quiet. I've seen a few shows, but I think they're mostly bream, just mostly catch the tail end of them, and yeah, just not really moving enough water to be carp. And I've caught 2 pike, hooked fair and square, bottom lip, yellow pop-ups, and I've had 1 pike cut me off as well, so pretty much a disastrous session so far, all in all. But you know, sometimes success follows disaster, so fingers crossed we're going to have a little bit of luck today. We'll give it one more night tonight. Yeah, it's a good old long reach. Like I say, I did do particularly well last year, so I was probably due a bit of a struggle up. Come on, the old friendly, where are you?
Magic memories. Well, there's one magic memory that happens a lot in fishing. If you target, you know, individual fish from a lake, you join a lake for the, you know, back in my day, I used to join St Ives, catch the fat lady. It was £58.10 when I caught it. It was, you know, it's like nearly a 20-pounder bigger than the next biggest fish in the lake. So you're fishing that lake for that one fish, and anything else that comes along, obviously, but that's your target. There is no better memory or feeling than catching that target fish. There's something primal, something tribal about it, because having a goal and achieving a goal in whatever it is, it's the reason why we like sports. It's the reason why we get behind a football team. When Ronaldo scores a goal in the top right corner, we cheer somebody else hitting the target. Like, as humans, we're programmed to do it. It's part of evolution, and I feel like catching a target fish, you know, and I've been fortunate to catch a few. That feeling of elation, maybe you've seen friends catch it, maybe you've seen pictures of it in magazines, and you catch it yourself. There is no better magic memory or feeling than that moment, and the more you can do it, the better it feels and the more addictive it gets.